Let's roll into this today on Open Loops. We have somebody that really stuck out initially when I interviewed him a few years back, and I've been waiting for the right time because I wanted to have him back when there's been a lot circulating around Egypt in Egyptology. A lot of people have been talking about underground gateways and advanced technological innovation. They've done X-rays and they're claiming there's stuff like this, and oh, this supports that the tombs had all this stuff. My guest today, Stephen Myers, he has a very specific view of what's going on here. He's been interviewed on over 130 radio talk shows discussing his research and books about how and why the Great Pyramid was built, and specifically the Great Pyramid water pump. Yes. This is a outspoken critic of Egyptology, as well as the Orion correlation theory. And he even has a new book about that. The Orion correlation theory is invalid. Why that theory is wrong, by Stephen Myers. Stephen Myers, thanks for coming back on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I sure appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hey, man, look, I mean, is there since we talked, is anybody taking this water pump theory more seriously, in your opinion? Or are you still the one person trumpeting this?
No, there's a lot of people that think that the Great Pyramid was some type of machine, and the machine was built at a huge cost, but it had a big return on investment. And there's several other people that have different ideas that it was like a weapon or a communication device, or that the Great Pyramid was built to stop earthquakes, or a whole bunch of other ideas, including the Great Pyramid was built to confirm Bible prophecy. That was a huge idea that has lost favor in modern times. But I think that the Great Pyramid turned the desert into a garden and provided prosperity for those who built it by being a water pump.
Mm. Talk a little bit more about that for the people that aren't familiar with the theory. Just give them the very high level. I'm curious.
Well, we think that the Great Pyramid was built level by level using water locks and barges. So I wrote a book specifically about how it was assembled.
Yes.
Lost Technologies of the Great Pyramid. And there's a video series on our website that's free to watch with a bunch of computer generated animations describing how water locks, sort of like the Erie Canal, Panama Canal, went up, and they assembled the Great Pyramid with ease. Moving the stones was the easiest part. And then the purpose of all that work was to put a pharaoh's carcass in there so thieves could steal it, less than 30 years later. What a silly idea. No, the purpose of that was to pump water, and pumped water is very valuable. The Industrial Revolution started by using water power, and this pumped water could have had a number of purposes, and I see the Giza Plateau more as an industrial site or a scientific center than a mausoleum as such. And originally, the Great Pyramid pumped this water, and they could use it to power machinery to create compressed air, also a vacuum, static electricity, and a whole host of other things. So the Great Pyramid had a huge return on investment.
Yeah. The thing that immediately pops up to me, and I know I've been asking my guests a lot about this, but it kind of feels like the era we're in is the talk about what's happening with artificial intelligence and water. And people are saying water is becoming a more and more scarce resource. And these machines, these CPUs, the chips, they rely on so much water getting wasted. I mean, is there anything, is if we were to implement your technology in favor of pumping more water to then help our digital technology, is that just a waste of the pyramid, or do you think it could actually support these technological advancements we have going on right now?
Well, the AI does use a lot of electricity. A lot of it is generated in hydroelectric dams. So it wastes water that way, but also it takes a lot of water for cooling, and
Yes.
it uses water that way. I'm not saying AI is a waste, but what we are proposing is a additional alternative method to pump water, instead of using hydroelectricity or fossil fuels or that type of thing. So it's a method that we think was used in ancient times, and this high efficient lost technology can be redeveloped to help our modern but very troubled world.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel like right now more than ever, this could really be a difference maker? I mean, I certainly do. And I guess, the last time you were on my show, you compared Egyptologists to tomb robbers with college degrees. My question for you
That's
is that
true. That's true. Yeah, the difference between tomb robbers and Egyptologists is one has a college education and the other one doesn't. So, but they still take things out of tombs and they put them in museums, and the general public pays money to go look at these stolen treasures. And Egypt and other countries are trying to get artifacts returned to where they came from because American and English and German archaeologists and Egyptologists stole a bunch of that stuff. There's a book, The Rape of the Nile, which is just one book that talks about this movement to try to get these things uh, brought back to where they should be. But
have,
yeah,
yeah, you've gone out there, haven't
oh,
you?
Egypt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've been there several times. Last time I was there, I led a 13-day tour, and we visited the Great Pyramid and many of the other ancient sites. We also visited the High Aswan Dam, which to me was very fascinating.
Why's that?
Well, it generates electricity, and they use that to pump water.
Yes. I mean, there does seem to be a lot of. Let me ask you this. Has anybody that would classify themselves as an Egyptologist ever reached out to you and said, hey, you might have something here?
No, there's pretty much a wall of silence, and Egyptology is doing their own thing. But one of the things that Egyptology doesn't do is provide demonstrative evidence of the narrative they've came up with. The Great Pyramid had casing stones over the entire structure, and they said, "Oh yeah, those Egyptians, they could make them all day long." But Egyptology, the science,
Mm.
has never made a single casing stone to say to prove how they say it was done. They've never made one. They've never made a single surface of a casing stone to to show how it was done. But all their books, they have little drawings to promote a narrative of how it was done. So imagine if I was a cow jump over the moonologist and talked about cows jumping over the moon and how they jump over the moon and everything. And someone would probably say, "Hey, can you demonstrate that?" And I wouldn't be able to. So Egyptology has never moved a 70-ton stone 1 inch, and that's how big the biggest stones were moved. They've never done it.
And you're saying you would go up against them any day and say this is more substantive. There's science here. Why is that?
Well, for one thing, water locks have been demonstrated many times. Wait, no, not many times, hundreds of times. No, not hundreds of times, thousands of times,
Yeah.
millions of times. A water lock has been used with one of the largest public works projects in the 19th century was the Erie Canal. They spent all that money, did all that work to build it. Why didn't they just drag the heavy payloads of cargo up and down the hills, back and forth, and everything? No, they built that infrastructure because it provided a huge return on investment. And but Egyptologists, it's a stagnated science. They don't engage in the scientific method. They will use unanimity of expert opinion. They will say, well, this is how it is because we have peer review of all of us people who think this is how it is, and that proves this is how it is. But the Piltdown skull's validity was proven using peer review.
That makes a lot of sense.
Peer
Yeah.
review is one of the least valuable ways of proving something that there is. They don't have to demonstrate anything. It's just like a hive mind and almost like circular reasoning, if you will. We're going to ask all the people that think the way we think what's right. And when they say the same thing as what we think, then wow, that proves it. You know, the location of the Great Pyramid has never been validated using peer review.
Really?
Yeah,
Explain that more.
you don't need to. People know right where it is. Things that things that can be demonstrated in the real world, you don't need peer review
Right,
to
right.
like there's the mole hardness test where you get two stones. If you want to figure out which one's harder than the other, you scrape them together. Like if you have soapstone and diamond and scrape them together, you don't have to go ask an expert which one's harder because you've provided a demonstration. But if you want to know how a casing stone was made, uh, we'll just tell a story and then we all believe the same story, and that's how it is. I don't know how they get away with it. I really don't know. I
You had an
don't know how.
interesting I saw you put up an interesting post about pharaohs and water slides. Could you go into that?
Well, that's actually has to do with something else, but the pharaohs have their arms crossed,
Right.
and that's very similar to how people go down water slides. So the two things look like each other, and that's one type of validation that's used in the Orion correlation theory. As above, so below. The pyramids look like, Orion's belt, therefore they're related. But if that research method was really valid, which it isn't, then the pharaohs, there'd be an intentional connection between pharaohs' mummies and water slides because they kind of look like each other. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, I get what you're saying. Yes. Yes. I mean, it would be it does look like they're going down a water slide. That is the that feels like a fun theory, especially in light of your theory. That it's a water but
Yeah. But I was just pointing out, a flawed research method. And
yeah.
as a researcher, I'm interested in research methods.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, so if we're gonna go into, and it's so interesting. I've always found it interesting, Stephen, that you are, I mean, we're friends with some similar people on social media because I feel like what you do has a lot more, or what you're trying to argue has a lot more credibility than some of the most spiritual, woo-woo people out there. And yet, it's because Egyptology is the mainstream ideology.
It
You're
is.
kind of you're in this category that's in the alternative views and the fringe views. Um, but let's play with that for a second. Pyramids. Everybody in the spiritual community is obsessed with the pyramid shape. Now, also, there's a lot of interest in the shape because it appears in different places around the earth, supposedly. I mean, I think I've seen evidence of this, but in different cultures, we got the Mayans, Incas, different shapes that have this structure. Is there anything in your research about that? Do you even care about the shape? Does it matter at all? What's your take on that?
Well, the shape is kind of like four hydroelectric dams back to back, if you will, and then water impounded in the middle. That's all described in our video series on our website at thepump.org. But if you had rock or masonry or bricks and you wanted to build a tall structure, it would pretty much have to be big on the bottom and little on the top. There's no alternative
Could it
because
be?
they don't
Yeah.
have, there's no I-beams or anything. The Mayans didn't have steel structures, so they had to make it big at the bottom, little at the top. And the pyramids in China, they didn't, when those were made, they didn't have big I-beams to make like the Twin Towers. So to make a tall structure, it has to be big at the bottom and little on the top. So it's just a design necessity. It doesn't mean that cultures communicated with each other or anything else. If you were a
Wow.
Mayan king and you talk to your engineers, I want a tall structure, they would say, okay, but it's got to be big at the bottom and little at the top.
Yeah.
And
I
if you
mean,
talk in Egypt, we want a tall structure. Well, it's got to be big at the bottom and little at the top. So it's just a design requirement, not necessarily a cultural phenomenon or throughout the earth.
yeah. I mean, that really does kind of stick it to a lot of people that are looking at symbols and looking for correlate. Oh, why this shape? There's got to be something about this shape. I mean, for those that aren't familiar, okay, so you got this book, The Orion Correlation Theory is Invalid, Why That Theory is Wrong. Um, I mean, it might disgust you to even say it, but what is the core Orion correlation theory in the first
Well,
place?
well, the Orion correlation theory is an idea that is pretty popular right now, that there's a relationship between the position of the three major pyramids and the stars in Orion.
Yes.
And and then it goes on with symbolism and religion and all of that. And that's a very simple explanation. But my fourth book about the Orion correlation theory was the easiest book to write because that I've written, because I discuss the research methods that they use and why those research methods are flawed. They think that precision validates a perceived correlation, like a numerical precision or even an alignment. If something is aligning precise to something else, then there was an intentional relationship between those things. But that's not really a very good research method at all. It's very flawed, to say the least. The events of the Great Pyramid are pointing to different stars now because of the precession of the equinoxes. Every 72 years, the sky moves 1 degree.
Yeah.
So the vents are pointing precisely to different stars now. So was that an intended relationship? No. And
Right.
they say, well, the vents point to the stars, which tell us when the Great Pyramid was built, but the Pyramid was built so that the vents point to those stars. But that's another type of flawed research method. That's circular reasoning. The book, the oh God, I can't think of the name of it right now. The Stargate Conspiracy. The
Mm.
authors of that book, they have a fascinating quote, and that quote is, I've got it here on my computer. It says, however, some of Robert Bavall is who came up with the Orion correlation theory because he said the stars look like the pyramids. But anyway, this quote is, however, some of Bhavall's assumptions are open to question. For example, he presents, let me put my glasses on. Just give me a minute.
All good, all good. I'm
Now,
curious.
now we're getting serious.
Yes, exactly. I want it. I want the evidence. Give it to me.
Okay. These other authors say, however, some of Bhavall's assumptions are open to question. For example, he presents a very circular argument that uses the stellar alignments of the shafts to prove the date of the Great Pyramid, but also relies on this date to prove that the shafts have a stellar alignment. This is classic circular reasoning. So there's a lot of people who certainly question the Orion correlation theory and its validity, but mathematical precision and alignment precision uh, are not valid ways to prove a correlation is valid. What you really need is causation, and the Orion correlation theory doesn't talk about causation at all. And causation is like a third relevant piece of evidence that ties the two things together. And a question I often ask is there a feature specific to the Great Pyramid which indicates the builders intended any relationship between the Great Pyramid and stars? And they
Mm.
all raise their hand. Yeah, that feature is the vents point to those the Orion's belt. And I say, no, they don't. They, because of the precession of the equinoxes, they don't. And then they say, well, they used to. Well, they used to point to a lot of stars. So used to is not a really good research method. And then, but specifically to the Great Pyramid, there is no feature that indicates the original builders intended any relationship between the Great Pyramid and stars. In fact, they could have symbolically told us in the future the Great Pyramid has nothing to do with Orion because
Right.
we designed it specifically so that the vents don't point to the stars.
Mm.
You could make up that interpretation, but it's interesting to note that just 100 years ago, there was another Great Pyramid correlation theory, and that is the biblical correlation theory, where people came up with correlations between the Great Pyramid and the Bible, and that they would use that to confirm Bible prophecy. They would use the pyramid inch, which was a unit of measure they made up, if you will, and it predicted, the World War I and when Jesus died and all of this other stuff. So the Great Pyramid has two competing yet contradictory correlation theories associated with it, and they both use the same flawed research methods.
That is, I mean, yeah, again, absolutely an argument that I feel like is the fatal flaw of a lot of people in alternative and alternative intellectual research, I suppose. I think there is a lot of correlation and not a lot of causation. You might even consider a lot of conspiracy. Um, with the exception of maybe this conspiracy being revealed right now publicly, but even in that there's correlation but not necessarily causation. Just because some people are have the same last name, or their father was involved in the mafia, or the CIA, it doesn't mean they are. It doesn't. But a lot of people make that logical mistake. It's that's the biggest problem, I think. There's a lack of logic in a lot of the conspiracy minded folk. Um,
There is a good way to talk to people when, like, Great Pyramid researchers or whatever, start talking about research methods. What was the method used to come up with your interpretation? And then they will
right.
start getting real defensive and sometimes blow their top when you force them to talk about research methods. And especially, this Orion correlation theory. which I've been researching for a while now, they will not talk about research methods. A lot of questions they won't answer. Can a Great Pyramid correlation be invalid? They won't say yes and they won't say no.
Let me ask you this. Could the Orion correlation theory and the water pump theory be true, or do they contradict each other?
Well, okay, there's four options. They can both be true, they can both be false. One can be true and the other one false, or the other one can be true and then the other one false. So there's four possibilities. But the best way to make a determination, I think, is that the original builders were geniuses and uh, they built a massive structure that cost, a lot of resources, and they had, here's a presupposition, they had a huge return on investment. And I would say that making pyramids look like stars in the sky is a very small return on investment. So
Yeah.
that kind of invalidates that idea. All hydroelectric dams have vents that point to stars. They have these passages in there, and they all point to stars. Worldwide, every hydroelectric dam has passages that point to stars because there's a lot of stars in the sky, and if whatever points up is pointing to stars. The seven spikes on the Statue of Liberty all point to stars. Isn't that interesting? But that doesn't mean that there was an intention for that to happen. What you need is causation. All flagpoles point to stars, no matter what. So, but was that the intention? And
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. I see in your book, I mean, do you you kind of praise Graham Hancock in this book, at least for one of his a few of his quotes. Do you like his work?
uh,
It might be a
I
controversial
didn't.
question.
I He is a proponent of the Orion correlation theory. He also will not talk about research methods. He
Yeah.
wrote an article. He's wrote, countless books, been on countless interviews, has a website with all these articles and whatever. I found one that he talked about research methods, but he was specifically addressing the ancient aliens crowd and talking about how the research methods they used was rather flawed. So I quoted him. I quoted him there, and I also quoted him where he says that the it's important to use valid research methods. So I use those two quotes to address some of the issues with the Ryan correlation theory that they didn't, exactly follow the, or Graham Hancock's own advice.
Yeah.
And I address that in the book with quite a few illustrations available as an ebook.
Yeah, we're gonna link. I mean, you can see it all at thepump.org. As well as we'll link right to the new book too, because I want to help you get your stuff out there so people can go directly to it. Um, yeah, it is super interesting that um I mean Graham Hancock broke through to Netflix. I mean, this is probably one of the bigger moments in people that seem to use interpretive evidence or they interpret what they sense as evidence and trying to make that ancient apocalypse make it into something that is for the public. um I mean, for people out there that are starting to question how old our Earth is, how long we've been around, ancient civilizations, were there advanced people before? Is there anything you want to say to them? Do you know anything about that world? Do you research it at all, or
Well,
does it?
yeah, but you said Graham Hancock interprets things. That's all Egyptologists do. They interpret
Yeah,
hieroglyphs. They interpret the Book of the Dead. They interpret articles in graves that they have stolen, and that's all they do. They don't provide demonstrations. They don't move heavy stones, if you will, other than they'll move a small stone and say how a big stone was moved.
right.
That's very disingenuous. I can pick up a full-size car just with my hands, just pick it up, put it over my head, and I can demonstrate that by picking up a Hot Wheels car and show you how I can lift a full-size car. Not a very good demonstration. The issue of scale makes that my demonstration invalid. But Egyptology, they do the exact same thing, and it's just disgusting that they can get away with that. And the measure of how the stones were moved is not moving the itty bittiest ones, but moving the largest stones. That's what is the criteria. So, but yeah, we are in a revolution of ideas. The Egyptology doesn't have a stranglehold on interpreting ancient Egypt or other things, and there are other people that have a voice, either through the internet or Netflix to provide alternative ideas. I know Dr. Robert Schoch says that the Sphinx is much older than traditional Egyptologists say it is because of water erosion. But Egyptologists have eviscerated him and everything. But Dr. Robert Schoch is a geologist, and the Sphinx is made out of rock. So, it's within his realm to analyze it. So, if the Sphinx is so much older than Egyptologists say it is, that lends credence to the idea that the buildings around it, like the Great Pyramid, is possibly older as well. But the age of the Great Pyramid isn't the focus of my research. So let's say it was determined that the Great Pyramid was built 10,000 years ago. The starting date of the Great Pyramid was 10,000 years ago today. Let's say that we've determined that. Absolutely. The very next question is, well, why would they build such a thing, and what was its purpose?
Yeah,
How did they build it? And so I don't focus on too much on when it was built, how old it is. It's like if you're in a car wreck and the ambulance shows up, you don't look at it and say, "Hey, when was that built? How old is it?" That doesn't matter. What matters
yeah,
is how the ambulance can be a return on investment while you're in need, and that's what I think the Great Pyramid could be for our modern world. And I also, a lot of people say, "Well, who built it? Who
yeah,
who who financed it?" We know who financed the Grand Coulee Dam, my favorite dam. That would be Roosevelt, FDR, with the WPA and building dams and that type of thing. So we know who financed that. But the Great Pyramid, who was it? Who and I know people that spent 30 years trying to figure that out. Was it Khufu? Was it 10,000 years before? And then let's say it was somebody named Bob, who he was the leader. He decided to build the Great Pyramid. The very next question would be, well, why would he build such a thing? How did he build it, and why would he do such a thing? So I don't focus on who or when. I focus on how and why.
yeah. Have you ever? Okay. I'm not meaning to cause controversy here, but
Please
um,
do.
I want to put one of my guest theories against yours. Have you ever spoken to John Shaughnessy about his theory about the pyramids? Um, have you, are you familiar with it at all?
A little bit. Certainly, there's a bunch of guys out there. His idea that the pyramids were built to reduce earthquakes.
Yes, they're gravitational lenses designed to stabilize the Earth's magma currents and prevent Yellowstone from erupting. And I know he's got volcano alignments and moon cycles and all of that. And like you, he's calling Egyptologists frauds.
Yeah.
But but I mean, where does that theory fall apart for you?
Well, he can do whatever we want. I know him, but it's interesting. In South America, they recently, last 10 years ago, destroyed a pyramid. There was some construction and a pyramid was destroyed, but I don't know if that caused magma to move a different way or
Oh,
if it
good point.
was caused more earthquakes or whatever. I don't know. I don't think so. There's a lot of pyramids out there, so there must have been a lot of earthquakes going on before they built these pyramids. And then somehow they built them through all these earthquakes, and then the earthquake stopped. So I don't know. That would
Yeah.
be a big return on investment if it really did work.
I was gonna say, I mean, it seems like at the very least, I like that it's not just totally, it doesn't feel completely woo. But again, I asked him the question, what would happen if you were to remove the pyramids or lift it up? And he was like, oh, that's a very bad idea. I don't know if you feel as strongly about that. Um,
Well, I wouldn't suggest lifting a pyramid or removing a pyramid by any means, just for archaeological purposes. But there's a lot of structures that are bigger than pyramids. High Aswan Dam, much bigger than any of the pyramids. The Grand Coulee Dam in Washington State, which is my favorite hydroelectric dam, it's about 13 times the volume of the Great Pyramid. So I don't know if those big structures help or hinder earthquakes or that type of thing. So,
yeah. I didn't mean to put friends against friends here, but no, I mean it's look, the purpose of this show is just to get to the truth or closer to it.
mhm.
So I definitely want to understand, even some of the newer things that are emerging. Okay, so let me ask you this: we have, um, 2024 team from UNC Wilmington published peer-reviewed research in a Nature journal confirming a 40-mile extinct branch of the Nile that ran right alongside 31 pyramids. The Aramat branch, basically a
Yes.
water superhighway for moving stone by boat. Where does that support your work, or is it still Egyptology messing things up?
No, that seems to be, some real evidence for that branch of the Nile, if you will. And people have always complained to me saying, "Well, the Nile River is far away from the pyramids, so they couldn't get the stones to the pyramid, but using canals, like Lake Erie is pretty far away from New York, but they built a canal between the two of them, if you will, the Erie Canal. But anyway, with
True.
canals, you can get from here to there. But with this branch of the Nile now being discovered and people know about it, that has shut up those people that say, "Well, there's no water there for the water locks." And so that's almost a confirmation of the use of water to construct the Great Pyramid. So, like I say, the original builders were geniuses, and they actually accomplished their goal of building the Great Pyramid. But if Egyptologists were responsible for building a pyramid, it would never be built.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That
Could you imagine?
Oh, that's
If an
true.
Egyptologist went back in time to the time of the pharaohs, and the pharaoh said, "There's a strange person in my kingdom. This guy, he says his name is Egyptologist. I want him to build me a big pyramid. And so he would come and have an audience with the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh would say, "Do you know about pyramids?" "Oh, yes, I know about pyramids. I'll pick up this pot shard and I'll interpret it. Okay? No, I don't want that. I want you to move heavy stones in a production-like manner, 6 million tons, and stack them in a pyramid shape. I want you to do that. Oh, I can tell you all about how they wrapped a mummy." And then the Pharaoh would ultimately say, "Get that Egyptologist away from me. He's worthless. He won't be able to help me at all."
That is, yeah, yeah.
You do know the most Egyptologists, the largest stone they've ever moved is the one in their kidney.
Oh, I was waiting for these jokes to kick in. What, what else can you tell us about Egyptologists?
Well, they certainly abhor the scientific method. They are one of the last 18th century sciences that still exist now, and Egyptology is actually the richest science in the world, certainly richer than astronomy, richer than, the science of math, if you will. They have all of these stolen artifacts and well-heeled donors and departments and universities and museums with their priceless artifacts and paying customers. So Egyptology is the richest science in the world, but there's still departments of Egyptology and universities. It's just sad. It really is. Can you imagine if there was a department of excuse me, a department of phrenology in science? Oh, the bumps on his head. Yeah, we'll just have a department of phrenology because we can make money off of that. Boston University, very prestigious institution, has a department of Egyptology. Shame on you, Boston University. Shame on you. Why do you do that? Why do you sacrifice your dignity and have a department of Egyptology? You know, put your mouth where your money is and make a great pyramid casing stone, move a 70-ton stone, 1 inch.
If
But
you
no,
have they ever invited you for a lecture? If I got someone from BU to bring you to the campus, would you do it?
I would. They've already
uh,
got the money. They don't need me.
I want to see it. I want to see you
Oh
debate
yeah,
the
it'd be
students.
fun. They it's the last of the 18th century, pre-scientific sciences that still exists. It's a stagnated mystery religion. There's no demonstrations. If you pick up a book about Egyptology from 100 years ago, it's the same as the ones now. Any other science, math, physics, metallurgy, anything else is advanced tenfold, but Egyptology is just a cult, if you will. And it is, and it is very sad. To be an Egyptologist, you sit in a classroom and listen to the generation before you teach you to be the same thing they are, and that's not a science. You could go to any priesthood and have be taught the same thing. If you want to be a scientist, engage in the scientific method and actually, have a hypothesis, a
Yeah.
demonstration, and then to substantiate your hypothesis. But Egyptology doesn't do that. They stop at the hypothesis and validate it through peer review. Well, we all think that's how they did the stone carving with extreme precision, and on a casing stone surface of 5 by 7 feet within what 125th, 125 thousandths of an inch or whatever, the thickness of your thumbnail about,
Right.
very precise, renowned for their precision. And then oh yeah, they had these chisels, pop, 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 and then they had mallets and everything, and then they happy as clams doing this all day long for the Pharaoh. Boop, 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 boop. And then it had to be real precise so the Pharaoh's mummy wouldn't, his mummy juices wouldn't leak out, or his soul wouldn't leak out a certain way. And then they interpret all of this stuff. But it's sad, and it won't last forever. I don't know anyone past the eighth grade that's looked into this stuff instead of just believing what they're told, who actually believes what Egyptologists say anymore. It's sad, really.
I
It
mean, do
really
you
is.
do you even going back to the early names, like Howard Carter.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
Howard
mean,
Carter,
you like that guy?
Flanders
Or
Petrie, and all them.
yeah, were all these guys BS in your mind?
Actually, Sir Flanders Petrie, if nothing else, at least he measured the pyramid the best that he could. He would get a screwdriver, go to one end like inside a chamber, pound it into the stone, take a measuring
Right.
tape, measure it all the way to the other end, and write it down. But he didn't engage in the scientific method or in terms of demonstrative evidence to validate what he thought. He did. Sir Flanders Petrie wrote an article near the end of his life discussing how the Great Pyramid was built. He felt it was built level by level, course by
Mm.
course, including the casing stones. And he also felt that the casing stones were each level were placed first, and then the stones for that level were put in there inside the perimeter wall, if you will. And then the next level up, he uh, interpreted from the evidence that he thought the casing stones were set in place first for that level, and then the interior stones. So that sequence of construction is very similar to what I have in my books and my video series. But the motive force is to use water locks and water. But yeah, some of the early guys, Flanders Petrie and John Shea Perring. They had a lot of course, that's then. Now it's different. But back then, Perring was running out of money and he needed a big discovery. So some people say he forged the Pharaoh's name in one of the relieving chambers above the king's chamber.
Oh man.
Controversy about that.
What
But
about this
Egypt,
Professor Aidan Dodson I see people raving about on the internet?
which guy is that now?
Aidan Dodson.
Is he an
He,
Egyptologist?
yes. Do you just dismiss him by
Is he that fuzzy face guy?
he might be.
Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with him too much, and I'm not interested in people as much as I
The
am in
field.
research.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference. I if you talk about seeking truth, and then you see like a theory, like the Ryan correlation theory, and you talk about how it was based on flawed research methods. That's not against anybody. That's not putting anybody down. That is examining a theory, and science. It is okay to question science, if you will, and that's what I do. But I'm not in a personality match with
I
anybody.
like that. I like that. That's in a way for all the things you've said, the terrible things you've said about Egyptologists. I find that noble.
Yeah, it is. They have no interest in me or anything, but I'm just more of a humble researcher. I'm more into information than I am, personality conflicts. Certainly, I'm interested in research methods and that type of thing. All researchers should be interested in two subjects. First, the subject they're researching, which is, it could be metallurgy or World War II, manufacturing of tanks or whatever they're interested in. That's what a researcher should be interested in. But they should also be interested in how to conduct research. and they should be trained to identify invalid ways to interpret evidence. It's interesting. I used to watch those CSI shows,
Yeah.
CSI Vegas and New York and all that. But most of the show was the research methods they used to analyze data, DNA, hair, blood spatter, and how they would collect the data and analyze it and then come up with an interpretation of the data. So it was interesting. They were interested in solving murders and crimes, but they were also interested in being competent researchers. And a lot of people that you have on your show, a lot of alternative researchers, certainly Egyptologists, don't talk about research methods. They will tell you
Yes.
what they've come up with, but the method that they've come up with it is generally not discussed at all.
I try to get them to discuss it, but it's hard. It's yeah, it usually doesn't have much. Maybe the answer is their intuition told them.
A lot
Um,
of alternative people do that, yeah, or they get hot under the collar when you ask about research methods. And I like to put their feet to the fire and say, well, how come how did you get to that conclusion about this pyramid and that star and all of that? And then nowadays, people with computers, they have all these images with lines that they drew on, like from a pyramid to a star and all of that. So I asked them, were those lines intended by the original builders? And they would say yes. And I would say, how do you determine that? Oh, the conversation's over. And
yeah.
but adding lines to images is, I would say, a very poor research method because everybody does it. People who believe in Great Pyramid Bible correlations add lines, and all these lines contradict each other, and they won't say if the original builders intended the lines. It's just it's a line-ageddon, if you will. And people do that and think they've done research or something. It's sad. So for open-minded people that are have an interest in all of this, there's a lot of chaff that you have to go through and a lot of controversy, and both of those things are generated by poor research methods. Like I say, the mole test for the hardness of rocks, there's no controversy about which rock is harder than the other because it can be demonstrated using the scientific method, and that's the value of science. But when you have a science like Egyptology that doesn't engage in the scientific method, then there's all of this controversy, all of this flame wars, and people all mad at each other, personality differences, and all of that. So
So this
that's
guy that just
mhm.
published a claim that the Great Pyramids are 22,000 years old based on erosion patterns that he measured
Good.
himself using a method he invented himself.
Mhm.
What do you, I mean, good.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah. And he probably won't tell people it's what that method is. Yeah, I don't know. So I don't follow the age of the Great Pyramid research very much at all. But yeah. So there's all of that, and these scans, a lot of scans, and people say, "Oh, that scan that did it right there." And I say, "Well, can a scan be wrong?" Can't get an answer. They won't
Right.
say yes, and they won't say no.
I wanted to ask you about the satellite SAR
Yeah.
imaging.
Yeah,
It's
there's
an
that too.
underground city beneath Giza, 2,000-foot shafts, spiral staircases.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, they're using them SCR scans and all of that, and those scans are awesome. They've in South and Central America, they found all of these cities under the canopy of the rainforest and lots of things. But those scans have an application. They can see through vegetation, and they can go down 6, maybe 10 feet, but they don't go any deeper than that. But
Mm,
those, you don't have to be an expert. Go to Wikipedia. They are good in their application. Well, these new recent scans that we've all seen the images on Facebook and everything of these look like pogo sticks, with the
yes. Yeah,
big
they do
pipe
actually.
thing, and then the spring then
Yeah,
keeps
it
the
does.
pyramid from bouncing around. But the process, he collected data, from these satellite scans, and they're
Yes.
measuring micro vibrations, and then they interpret that data that they've collected and create a blurry picture. That's the modus operandi. That's the way they do it. And then they use a proprietary method, including AI, to analyze the data. And we don't know what that is because it's
Yes.
proprietary. And then they come up with the pogo sticks. And but in the 80s, they had a scan, came up with a blurry picture, and the scan, and that it was interpreted to be an internal spiral ramp on the Great Pyramid. Oh, there it is. It's right there. We see the blurry picture, and then they have an artist's rendition of an internal spiral ramp. But the pyramid scan project with the muon technology scanned the Great Pyramid. It didn't detect the internal spiral ramp. So there's a lot of AI slop, and there's a lot of interpretations that can be misinterpreted, and there's a lot of personality, and that type of
Yeah.
thing. So, yeah, but I want to go on record right now.
Yeah,
None
let's
of
hear
that
it.
exists. It doesn't exist. I'm risking my reputation as a researcher that
Y-
all of the pogo sticks and all of the underground city do not exist. They're not there. The scans are flawed. The results are invalid. So if they find all of that stuff, I am an incompetent researcher, and I'm worthless. But that holds true for these other people. All these people, oh no, no, it's validated. And
Yeah.
those people who take that position, when it's finally determined that all of that stuff does not exist, they will be worthless, incompetent researchers. So time will tell, and it may be a long time. But there are still people who believe the Great Pyramid Bible correlations, and including Ben Carson, who ran for president not too long
Yes.
ago. He believed in the Great Pyramid Bible correlations. A lot of people do because they're precise, validated by precision, not causation.
Yeah. I gotta say
But
also, people
yeah,
need to follow you.
there'll be people forever believing that the pogo sticks down there exist, just like there'll be people forever believing Egyptology. So and
I
the
was just gonna say your Facebook and I guess I imagine I mean I'm friends with you on there. You have some of the most entertaining memes. I sometimes think you're doing memes all day. I feel
I do I, I do a lot of memes, and I think memes are rather valuable. A meme is just a picture, similar to like political cartoons that were in newspapers for 150 years. It's a way to communicate succinctly, oftentimes complex or controversial issues.
yeah.
But I try to hold the people's feet to the fire who believe the Orion correlation theory, and try to goad them into talking about research methods. And I've found out that if you believe the Orion correlation theory, you are a researcher who will not talk about research methods. And there is a reason for that. And my latest book, talks a lot about that. And it is a strange phenomenon. It really is.
What
Could
is
you
it gonna
imagine?
take to build this pump? to get it going? What do we need to get this pump back?
To redevelop this ancient technology, or
Yeah.
you mean for them to build it?
I mean, for us to build it, for to get to the prosperity that your other books promise.
It's technology that needs to be redeveloped. Just like there was a guy who looked at bread mold and he said, "Hey, I can make sick people well with bread mold." And ultimately, Alexander Fleming developed penicillin. And we need, it was a whole effort. And he developed penicillin, and the medical community rejected it. They said it was too expensive. They said it didn't work. They said, "You're a botanist, and how can you delve into the realm of medicine?" So by that reason, what you're saying is invalid. And ultimately, the military community accepted penicillin because they know they were going to need that type of thing, and also the sulfur drugs, if you will. But that's a whole nother story. But what we need is wise leaders who are highly motivated to put in the effort to redevelop this type of technology. And I think that it would be like a Manhattan Project, where the budget of the Manhattan Project was to develop the bomb to blow up cities in Japan. You know what the budget was?
What was it?
Infinity.
Oh
It
man.
was infinity. There was a shortage of copper. They needed some copper pipes, shortage. They said, "Oh, forget about it. We'll just use silver." So they made the pipes out of silver that they needed right then and there. Didn't matter. Why? Because there was a huge return on investment for the technology they were developing. Nuclear stuff is just like physics, but the Manhattan Project was developing a product, a
Yeah.
device, if you will. And then that's what we need to do. There's some fundamental research that we're doing, but needs to be redeveloped. Just or somebody like Thomas Edison. He developed the light bulb. He didn't just say, "Well, this is the light bulb," and plug it in. He went through 10,000 experiments before he could, he developed an effective light bulb. And they said, "Oh, what a waste." And he said, "No, I found out 10,000 things that wouldn't work."
Yes.
And even Dyson for his vacuum cleaners, he went through thousands of permutations, maybe not thousands, but quite a few to develop his technology for vacuum cleaners. And I think this ancient technology was non-polluting and very efficient, would be a good alternative for nuclear power plants. But they're not going to siphon off money for nuclear power plants for this. So, and it takes a long time. This is like generational work that
Yeah.
is sad. It really is
I mean,
sad.
you've had this nonprofit, the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation, for a long time now.
For
How
a
long
long
is that?
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are working on a shoestring. We have a small facility here at our headquarters. We have a pretty good library of books published and not, some manuscripts. We have research and a number of people around the globe, that are interested in a similar direction of research and that type of thing. So
I want
we're
something
doing the
to
best.
happen in even in my lifetime. I would love something to happen.
Yeah, it'd be
Um,
nice, but truth is harder to get to than you would think. I'm going to ask you a question. Should women be allowed to vote?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
that was like a 50-year battle, for women to be able to vote, and that's just a cultural thing that to us is self-evident. But for that social battle to occur, was horrific. It was very hard, and ultimately they succeeded. So we need people that want to help. They can donate their expertise, or they can pray for us on our foundation. They can add a link to their website, from their website to our website at the foundation. They can in dinner parties or whatever, instead of talking about hunting and fishing stories or how their stocks are doing, they could say, "Hey, there's an idea that the Great Pyramid provided prosperity for those who built it, and
Yeah.
it was non-polluting." People, there's a lot of ways to help, and that type of thing. Or, maybe ultimately,
Well, I think
maybe
about,
ultimate.
what's happening right now with Palantir, smart cities, AI. I
Mhm.
mean, none of this stuff feels like it's actually helping the people.
I get that.
Right? I mean,
I get that. But it is helping somebody, and
right.
that type of thing. But Nikola Tesla was trying to help people, and he says, "Hey, I can transmit power over the air." And the person finding it,
Well,
Carnegie, was it? Was it Carnegie? No, Westinghouse. Who anyway? The person funding it said, "That's great. Now, where are you going to put the meter so they can send me a check every month?" And Nikola Tesla says, "Oh, there's no place for a meter. It just transmits energy, and people can get it for free." Oops, the
huh.
funding, dried up. So what you know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, I get what you're saying.
The fun,
Do you think that's
Nikola Tesla's,
correlation? Is
huh?
that correlation or causation?
Oh, well, there's a correlation between people that have money want to invest in something they can make more money on instead of helping people, if you will.
That is true. That is true. Uh,
So, what we envision is ultimately having it open source. There's no patent or anything, and people will be able to use like 55-gallon drums or other components they can source locally, like third world countries, that type of thing.
That would be
And
interesting. I'm curious what the vision is. I never really thought. I always think about you bringing the pump back to Egypt first and then doing it there and then seeing what we could do. But I mean, what could
no,
this look like now
no,
here in America?
they already have their massive water pump that can pump year round. They can irrigate year round now with the High Aswan Dam. They, in
Right.
fact, stopped the yearly inundation because that irrigation wasn't as effective as damming the river, if you will, and being able to have a massive year-round irrigation system. And it caused the desert to bloom and that type of thing. So
So what does that look like here then? Are we talking building a pyramid in the United States somewhere?
don't need a pyramid. What they just used that to because of their building materials. They needed a
Right.
fairly large scale, and they use stone and that type of thing. But we would just use polypropylene containers, PVC pipe, if you will, and some off-the-shelf valves and other components and that type of thing. So it would be developed. Could you imagine if you could pump water, let's say from your cistern in your yard, right at ground level, and you could pump water very cheaply? What would you first thing you would do with it? You pump
Right.
water up. What would you do with it?
What would I do with it?
generate generate electricity.
Oh,
So there
yes.
would be either homes would be able to generate their own electricity, or even communities would develop their own generating electricity facilities with this pumped water, similar to communities have wastewater management, that type of thing, or whatever. So it would help, and it would help with greenhouse gases, help with everything, and pollution, global warming, CO2. It doesn't involve any of that. It's different. It's an ancient but very different technology that's in harmony with the earth and all of that type of stuff. And my second book
Yes.
describes how that pump operated, the Great Pyramid water pump, and then ultimately talks about the future of developing that ancient technology. So there's a lot of technologies that are ancient that we use today. Aspirin,
Hmm.
a lot of medicines came out of South America from the witch doctors. A witch doctor and someone would come up and say, "Hey, I have a headache," and they would say, "Well, just chew these leaves and call me in the morning." And the leaves are where aspirin is, the source of aspirin. Now we create it artificially, not from plants, and a lot of things. C-sections, cesarean sections. They did
Yeah.
that in Egypt. I would say that's a pretty high technology myself. I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to be involved in doing anything like that. Also, terrapanning, brain surgery. South America, there's a lot of skulls that obviously had brain surgery. You could tell that they survived it because it started to heal. What I'm trying to say. The bone and everything. So they would do a lot of that. You
I
know,
mean,
uh,
it does seem that there is one of the things I was thinking about here with this, is that you definitely have to figure out how to round a group of people together to believe in this ROI in order to manage a project as significant as building the pyramid initially like that.
true.
Um, is there how do we, how do we get people on that level of cooperation today? And what did they have that we don't that made them go, this is a great idea for us?
Well, they probably had a different economic system and a different interface with the world than we have. You know, we have all of our energy systems seem to benefit somebody economically. And if we
Yes.
develop an energy system that wouldn't benefit the super rich, then they would have no interest in it at all. So, and in fact, all the conspiracies about, uh, engines that run on water that's been suppressed and that type of thing, they would actively suppress it. But yeah, I wish, that we have, a bunch of people, but to get something really going, is my life quest. Einstein figured out the theory of relativity, but he never developed an atomic bomb from that. He didn't just, oh well, I'll just make this up. No, that
Yeah.
had to be done with a huge amount of effort and the brightest minds in the world and that type of thing. So it's it's a life quest. I'm actually getting older, believe it or not, and
Uh,
that
uh,
happens. So I hope maybe what do they call it? An angel donor or somebody who could figure out how to make money off of it would would be interested. I hate to say this publicly, but the technology's been in public domain for quite a while, the Great Pyramid. So it'd be difficult to patent it. I'm not a patent lawyer,
yeah.
so that would scare off a lot of people. I've had people say, "Oh man, let's just develop this, get it patented, and we can make money off of it." And then I say, patenting it might be difficult because it's in public domain already. We just redevelop it and they're gone. So
Uh,
hopefully,
It seems like you're doing look, you're entertaining with your memes while
mhm.
teaching. And you're standing up for science and you're standing up for prosperity. I mean, I feel that people definitely should, and we'll link them, go to thepump.org. As well as, yeah, I mean, pick up all your stuff. I would love to see some development on this because look, it feels like this is a This is the closest I've actually heard to a scientific explanation for what the woo-woo people call free energy. And it ain't free, but
Well,
still,
no, no, it's not free, and there's a lot of misconceptions about energy. Hydroelectric dams took energy to build, but you get more energy out of them than you put
right.
into them. So I mean, people don't look at it that way. Even a refrigerator, it actually moves heat, if you will, out of it doesn't make cold, if you will, but it does it in a rather efficient method than you would think. But yeah, we've got a pretty big body of research that people can analyze if they read books. And we have a couple of video series with computer generated animations they can watch for free on our website. And getting the word out on shows like yours really helps. But I will be honest, it's kind of a hard sell to tell people,
I
oh,
mean,
well,
it
the
doesn't
Great
have
Pyramid helped.
aliens. It doesn't
Yeah, they'd say,
have.
yeah. Well, let's
Yeah.
say, well, let's confirm it. Let's go ask an Egyptologist and we'll find out what it's all about. Oh, no, there was a big ramp and they all had strong back muscles, that type of thing. Or they'll say, oh, no, they didn't build the pyramid to actually help people. They built it to point to stars, and so it's a different and then people that are technically inclined, like car mechanics, people that work in shipyards, those kinds of people, they embrace this idea right off the bat. But people that can't hardly lift the hood of their car or identify what they're looking at, people that are not technologically inclined, it's a tough sell for them. So.
I mean, I was gonna say, look, in an era where we're trying to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., and manufacturing in general, I mean, I feel like something like this is kind of this fits in with the need for skills. There seems to be a deficit of people that are actually able to use the resources that we have on Earth and make something with them, as opposed to just, well, I guess do what I do all day sometimes, which is sit on the computer, type things out.
Well,
Uh,
no, you don't sell yourself short. You're getting the word out.
that's true. That's true.
You're involved in information. You obviously have an open mind and that type of thing. So you're doing your part. I'm doing the best I can with the resources I have, and
What would make
hopefully,
the difference right now? I mean, you told me last time that killing off, I don't know if you use that terming, but getting rid of Egyptologists would be the most important thing that could help you in your research. Is that still true?
yeah, the way I put it is Max Planck, famous scientist that, excuse me, dry throat.
All good, all good.
He
Get
said
get
that science advances funeral by funeral. Science doesn't advance with open-minded research or anything like that, but it advances again, funeral by funeral. And I don't mind Egyptologists when they have a funeral. Isn't that a sad thing to say? But the Piltdown skull was validated by the best anthropologists in the world. Thousands of them wrote their doctoral thesis on the Piltdown skull, but it took 40 years for it to be acknowledged that there are visible file marks on the Piltdown skull when they made that forgery, whoever made it. So, why did it take 40 years for the greatest experts in that field to see the file marks? And the reason is they had already made up their mind. None of them changed their mind, and it took 40 years for those people to end their career and die off. The next generation of anthropologists, they didn't change their mind either, but by then they knew it was a forgery. And so it was actually found about 1 mile from the back step of Darwin's house.
Oh,
About one
interesting.
mile over there. Isn't that interesting? But that's a different different story altogether. So, but science is probably the least open-minded thing. There's personality conflicts and there's forgery of evidence, the use of invalid research methods, people that just believe what they're told, and that type of thing. So it takes a while for truth to win out. And people believe the Great Pyramid Bible correlations for a long time. There's books written, 600-page books and everything about it. But that correlation theory finally went the way of the ash heap of rejected ideas. And the correlations between the bumps on your heads and character traits, phrenology, they taught that in universities. There were medical equipment made based on the science of phrenology, but ultimately it was determined there's no causation between the bumps on a person's head and character traits. So that science, that correlation theory, went down the tubes. And the
Okay.
same, yeah, the Orion correlation theory is in crisis now, and they're circling the wagons. They're refusing to talk about research methods, but more and more people are questioning that theory, and it will be rejected.
If you
Uh,
had to
you
choose
know,
one, let's say you're remembered either for the water pump or you're remembered for taking down the Orion correlation theory, which do you choose?
oh, gee. Well, let me put it this way. The purpose of conducting research is to um, discover and embrace truth and destroy falsehoods. If you're a researcher who says, "Oh, we respect this other research, it may not be right," then you're not a very good researcher. So you have to do it all. They're two sides of the same coin. You
So
know,
all of these books, yeah, all these books do seem to fit together. Um, and they're all available on Kindle. Um,
They are all available on Kindle, and some you can get, all but one is available if you have Amazon Prime for free.
oh
So,
yes,
so that's
right.
why there's no big money making thing or anything like that.
No, I'm definitely not convinced you're in this for the money. Um,
No, I like truth.
yes, yes. You might be in it for the memes, but that's still to be determined.
Yeah, we,
Uh,
we did that. I mean, it's instead of being political satire, it's satire on a specific subject, generally
I love it.
either Egyptology or the Orion correlation theory. But you can't get people. I'd say there is no causation. You would think that someone would want to prove me wrong and say, "Oh yeah, there's causation. See here, let me explain it to you. The star and the pyramid, and here's causation that validates it." Okay, I did an experiment once, and I said on Facebook because you can get people to swarm in on you. I said
Yes.
American Indians cannot make sharp knives. Okay, that's a
Okay.
statement. People came in. Well, what about napping? With obsidian, it's napping, and then you do that, and the arrowheads are sharp. They use napped obsidian in modern day surgeries because when it fractures, it goes right down to one molecule. It's sharper than scalpels. Okay.
Hmm.
But that's not just a story. That's like real. My brother-in-law who he was an American Indian, but he did napping. He had like a little leather over his leg, and he'd be pounded on the rock and making arrowheads and stuff. That he was a greater scientist than all Egyptologists put together because he provided a demonstration to prove that my statement was incorrect. But when I say there is no causation for Great Pyramid correlations, silence. It's like crickets. They run away. It's odd.
That is very odd. Very odd. Look, I mean, what do you say to people that are on the ground in Egypt, um, who are there, people that go to the Giza Plateau 3 times a week, 20 years. Um, and they say, well, anti-gravity control is the only solution for how the pyramids were built.
Well, I would say I agree with that because water locks are like an anti-gravity device. You can use water locks, like in the Panama Canal, to lift battleships. You know, when you move something farther away from the center of the earth, that's anti-gravity. But I know what you're getting at.
No,
What can you say? You know,
no,
I've
I mean, it does make sense, though. It
Mhm.
does kind of complement it, right?
Yeah, I talked to a tour guide, and the tour guide, he wanted to tell you whatever gave him the best baksheesh, which is tip, if you will. And
Yeah.
I think that's what they did with Herodotus. Herodotus showed up and there were people there telling him stories. Whatever story gave the best tip is the best story. But I said, did Egyptology ever make a Great Pyramid casing stone? Oh yeah, yeah, they've made those. And is there a picture of one? Oh yeah, yeah, you can get it on the web, while we're standing there in front of the Great Pyramid, but no. And then people will say, well, why would they need to make a casing stone when they can just, you know, show you a little bit of scraping and then say that's how it was done? Well, it doesn't work that way because if the casing stones are about 16 tons
Mm,
and they're finished on all six sides. So you'd have to turn a stone at least 16 tons over without handling scars so you can finish the other side. And so so it's if you want to demonstrate how to make a barrel, a wooden barrel,
yeah.
there's a really good idea. Make a wooden barrel, and if you want to demonstrate how to lift a car with your hands, a full-size car, use a full-size car. But I've made an arrowhead with my pocket knife. I got a piece of soapstone and I started carving it and made an arrowhead. But it
Right.
wasn't like the originals, so it was an invalid demonstration. And Egyptology is heralded or known for invalid demonstrations. But the truth is out there. The truth will prevail, and the Great Pyramid gives up its secrets very slowly,
Yes.
and
What was it
hopefully I
like
can
for
be
you?
part of
I've
that.
never heard you talk about this. What was it like the first time you stepped inside the pyramid?
Oh, I remember the first time I went there, and you can see it from a mile off, and you're driving, and you get there, and it's get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's like a 45-story skyscraper. And
Hmm.
it's just awe-inspiring. Several things impressed me. The Giza Plateau is devastated. For 40 centuries, it's been, destroyed the best it can by humans, and graffitied and used as a quarry and everything else. But what remains is just absolutely magnificent. But another thing that impressed me was the size of the components. It's just tremendously large. So it's just, awe-inspiring. When we make a hydroelectric dam, we make it out of concrete. The size
Mm,
of the components is one molecule of concrete. But they move great big stones. Why would they do it that way? Probably because it fit their wants, needs, and desires. And then you compare the Great Pyramid with what Egyptologists say. Oh, there must have been a big ramp, even bigger than the Great Pyramid, and people drug these stones up there just for the fun of it. And then they made this tomb with long open passages and stones on pivots, which I think are valves, and
right.
and and to protect the pharaoh's treasure. And it was a total failure. I don't know if it even lasted. It's if it lasted 50 years before all this treasure was stolen, but there wasn't any in there. And then the Egyptologists say, well, we're going to interpret this. there's no treasure in there, so we know that the thieves stole it before us Egyptologists could steal it. And and then they consider themselves a science. It's just bizarre, but they get away with it, write more books just like that, like they have for 150 years, every year.
Oh
It's
man. We
it's
gotta get
sad.
okay, we gotta make your books bigger than Egyptology. We gotta get you to Boston University. We need to
Oh
build this
yeah,
pump. I
I'd
mean,
straighten them out. Can you imagine getting let's say a degree in something else, psychology or geology, get a degree in geology from the same university that has degrees in Egyptology? Man, I'm so glad I don't have a degree from Boston University that would have destroyed my credulity.
oh my gosh. Sorry, Mom. She graduated from BU. Um,
Yeah, so did Dr. Robert Schoch, who talks about the Sphinx being older than most people think it is. But anyway, it's
hey, it's a very
just,
specific department we're discussing
yeah,
here, not all of
yeah.
BU.
Mhm.
Um, but
Yeah,
maybe
they
go ahead.
used to teach the Bible, Great Pyramid correlations that are all precise, uh, teach them in universities as well. So things change.
Well, let's support the change. Everybody needs to go to thepump.org. Check it out, as well as the new book, The Orion Correlation Theory is Invalid. Why That Theory is Wrong by Stephen Myers, available on Amazon. Um, Look, is there anything right now, if you're, if there's one final thing you want to say to Egyptologists right now, what would that be?
Uh, Nothing. They're never going to change. The science will never change, and it will, they would rather it be rejected than to change. It's a belief system and all of that. But I'd rather address the viewers and say, don't just decide about the Great Pyramid's purpose or how it was built. Be a researcher and read a book. Don't rely on other people to tell you what to think and find out about the research. I spend a lot of time reading books that I disagree with, and that's a valuable lesson.
What do you think is the
So
the weakest part of your theory?
the weakest part is probably some of the very minutia, there's some of the details,
Hmm.
because we don't know exactly how efficient it was. We don't know, the flow through for certain valves because a lot of pieces are gone. There's some speculation. The Great Pyramid is a puzzle with many pieces gone. So all researchers, including Egyptologists, try to fill in the missing pieces to make sense of the whole thing. So that would be about the weakest part, but that's what research is for. And
Yeah,
I just hope people visit our website, consider us for talk it up on Facebook or in a forum or whatever, and don't make a harsh judgment without finding out about it and that type of thing. So I just hope people will consider the information we presented here and go from there. If
that's
they have a question, they can contact me through my website or my Facebook page. I have a YouTube channel with a bunch of videos on similar themes that we've talked about here. About the invalidity of the Orion correlation theory, some of the problems with Egyptology, and also our video series about how it was built, and our video series about how or why it was built and how the Great Pyramid pumped water. So there's been a lot of interest. It's building every year, and I keep busy
yes, yes,
with
you
all of
do.
this, a lot of irons in the fire. So
Yes.
things are good. It's been a fun ride. I mean, it's very interesting. Instead of getting like a motorcycle, and growing a beard and riding a motorcycle, a lot of guys my age or golfing. I have pursued this interest. It was an interest, and now it's a life quest, if you will, and gives me a reason to get up in the mornings.
Yes, yes, yes. That is interesting. Okay, final question for you. The L-shaped anomaly in the Western Cemetery, also just people making stuff up, or do you think it's something?
I don't know, but what's really good is to find out. The Pyramid Scan Project, their data indicated that there's the big void and then the small void right above the
Yes, I was going to ask you about that, the Grand
yeah,
Gallery.
yeah, but
Yeah.
Grand Gallery. Well, the small void above the chevrons, or right by the chevrons in the original entrance, that has been confirmed. The Pyramid Scan Project says, well, we have this anomalies in our data. They didn't say, oh, there it is, and it's right there. And then it was confirmed, they drilled a little hole, like put a camera up in there and took pictures. That's a good indicator that there might be a big void, but we have to find out. And then that's the same with the pogo sticks and the mile deep city and all of that. We have to, there is an interpretation of evidence that indicates to some that it's there, but it's not proven, even though they say, well, five other companies, did the same thing and they got the same results. Yeah. But where's their websites? Where's their results? You'd think they would be more prominent. It's just a Facebook picture I saw. So if you use the same techniques, then you might come up with the same invalidity of the scans. So, but it's good for real proof like photographic evidence to exist, and all of these scans are speculative in nature.
Yes. Yes. Okay, before we have to build a water pump to for your throat, I'm gonna
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show again. Thepump.org and check out the book. We will link to it. Always a pleasure talking to you. I love following you. I love following your stuff, and I love you sticking it to the mainstream view. So yeah, honor to have you back on the show.
Well, I appreciate it, Greg, and your open mind speaks volumes, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Anytime, anytime.